everyone. My name is Amal Omar. I am a graduate of MA Sociology at University of Manchester. I'm here today to talk about the importance of representation, the importance of inclusion, and the importance of diversity. So, I'll tell you a little bit of my backstory. My parents are both from Somalia. My dad was a banker back home, my mum was a teacher. Unfortunately, after the Civil War happened in Somalia in 1991, we had to flee to Djibouti, where I was born, in 1992. My family lost connections with my dad, and for 4 years, my mom and my siblings were all lived in Egypt for 4 years, and my dad reconnected with us in 1995. 1996, that's when we decided to move to Sweden. I grew up in Sweden, lived in Sweden for 12 years, so Swedish is my first language. My family had to start all over again in Sweden. My parents had to learn the language. My mother had to start university again and graduate as a nurse. My dad couldn't, unfortunately, grasp the language very well, so he had to work as a taxi driver. We were the only 3 black families in the whole town that I grew up in. It's a town called Landskrona. It's very important that I mentioned that because we felt very excluded in the society that we were living in. However, growing up, I remember that I did not see a lot of people that looked like me in any institution of society, which made me very curious. This is 5-year-old me in Sweden. I have 5 brothers and 3 sisters. We're a family of 11 and I'm the youngest child. In 2007, that's when we decided to move to UK Manchester. I was 15 at the time when we moved here. The reason why we moved here was because my family didn't feel very included in society in Sweden. Although my mom had graduated as a nurse and although my dad did have a very good job and we all learned the language, we still felt very much outside because we didn't feel that much of representation in society as a whole. I have to say, Sweden is pretty amazing. We have an amazing system, we have an amazing healthcare, an amazing education system. However, because of how we looked and because of where we were from, we weren't very acknowledged and very welcome there. That's when I moved to the UK and I started year 11 straight away. I didn't speak any English, so I had to learn the language really quickly. I had the support of my parents, and I passed all my GCSEs. One of the main differences that I noticed when I came to the UK from Sweden was that although UK was a very multicultural society compared to where I came from, there was a lack of representation even here. When I went to the schools and when I went to college, when I went to university, all my lecturers and all my teachers, I could not feel very represented in the rooms that I was in. This also made me very curious, and that's why I chose sociology. How did I choose sociology? Well, at college, I decided to do 3 topics, which were psychology, travel and tourism, and sociology. These 3, I thought you have to study these 3 topics to understand why society is the way it is. Psychology, because I want to understand why people think the way they think. Travel and tourism, I thought, well, I came from Sweden, I lived in Egypt. Clearly, there must be some sort of pattern going on in the world. And sociology, because I wanted to understand the social structures of society. And I'm very passionate about people, I'm very passionate about individuals and collectively. I remember last year when I was working, I went back to my high school for the first time, and my teacher told me, even though I was a very polite and a nice student, I was always very annoying because I was always questioning him why he was teaching us the information. Where did the information come from? Why is this information relevant to us? Who is teaching us this information? And then, 2008, my first year in the UK, that's when I did my first ever project. It was a project funded by the Heritage Lottery Centre Fund. This is when I started my volunteering journey as well. It was a hideaway youth project, which is based in Moss Side. This is the first time I met Somalis in Manchester. It's the first time I felt included in a society. I felt very like I belonged there, and this was a feeling that I wanted to keep and I wanted to pass on to the next generation. So, questions I usually ask is, are you black, are you Muslim, are you woman, are you Somali? When I first joined the Somali society in Manchester, this was the first time I felt that I came to a space where I felt like I didn't have to explain myself. There could be all these amazing things, or all these, in this political climate, worst things you can be at the moment. So I embraced this space, I felt very welcome, and it was just an amazing feeling. Some of the projects that I've been doing the past couple of years now have been different in Manchester. While studying, I worked alongside Manchester City Council to create a toolkit how to tackle extremism in society. I was invited to facilitate a seminar for the Manchester Greater Police. I have been creating a healthy eating programme for Somali women in Mossad and in Hume. I have created a girls' space only at Hyder Youth Centre for young women that look like me, to inspire them and to empower them and just to educate them, to tell them that they're enough in society. However, the most proud project of mine is Young Somalis of Manchester. What is Young Somalis of Manchester? It's a movement created by me and my friend who's always also in the audience today. The reason why we created Young Somalis of Manchester was we were so curious, and every time we Googled Somalis, all the negative images that came up always frightened us. We wanted to put a positive spotlight on all the Somalis that we knew, all our friends, our families, the community. We were doing amazing stuff, however, because of media, we were constantly viewed from a negative lens. The main aim of the project is, however, to inspire the next generation. I was very privileged enough to grow up with 8 siblings, older than me, because I was the youngest. So I had people to look after, I had people who looked like me, who could support me. However, I realised when I moved to Manchester, there was a lot of young people like me who did not have anyone to look up to, who did not have anyone to see a role model or see some sort of representation. So we achieved this by arranging a social media account, different social media accounts on Facebook, and Twitter and Instagram, where we posted daily pictures of young Somalis in Manchester to share their stories to inspire the next generation. So these are some of the pictures that we've taken. Because this is not a funded project, I have to take all these pictures with my iPhone 6. It stopped me that it's the camera. So how did we come up with the idea? Like I said, with the Google, if you Google Somalis, the pictures are horrible. If you Google Somalis in Manchester, the pictures are even worse. They were shooting this gang, and I felt this wasn't a representation of me, this wasn't a representation of my circle group, and this wasn't a representation of my community. And one thing that gets me going is that my nephew and my nieces were growing up in this political climate that has no representation whatsoever. So I wanted to create a platform with my friend and with my community to show them that there are people who look like you and there are people who are doing amazing stuff, although they don't get the chance to shine and to inspire as well. And we had our first ever exhibition last year in London, where we had pictures of the older me and the younger me, just to show that the role models and the representation and the importance of it. Why is it important, representation? Well, because when someone keeps telling your story from a different perspective, and someone keeps telling you, they keep spreading the lies about who you are and where you come from and what you do, it can get very tiring. But like as Jackie said, you can't take it personal. It's not a person, it's a system that's against you. That's why we wanted to create a safe space for young Somalis in Manchester. Hopefully, the dream is to continue this space to a worldwide platform where Somalis world around who don't have a very good representation can feel included in a society as well. These are more pictures from the exhibition in London. One of the things that I always talk about is it's very important to acknowledge who you are and what privileges you have. Once we acknowledge the privileges we have, that's the way we can move forward to a more equal and a diverse society. As I said before, I'm a very privileged girl because I grew up with older siblings and older role models around me. Not a lot of people have that. That's why it's even more important for institutions and greater society to make sure that we include and create safe spaces for all these young people. So this is the Instagram page that we have. We post pictures of Young Somalis in Manchester. We post their stories, we can all read, and then there's comments and there's likes and there's everything else. What I can say is that being a young black Muslim Somali woman today isn't easy. However, I have the privilege of having amazing parents who've supported my journey so far, and I've learned that my disadvantages are my advantages at the moment. I can speak more languages. I am from a different background. I have more resources. I have a culture behind me that supports what I'm doing. This is why it's very important that we teach this to not only the next generation, but this generation as well. anyone who has a minority, that means you have a larger platform to connect with. Anyone who speaks a different language, you have a larger international level to connect with anyone else. And this is why this is very important to me. This is one of the pictures from the exhibition for last year. And, okay, so in 2 weeks I'll be graduating at University of Manchester from sociology. The past 2 months I've been working on setting up my own consultant agency with my sister in Sweden to promote diversity representation within private and public sectors. This is something I'm very passionate about, and if I get the platform to do it, I will continue to do it for the rest of my life. I am still seeking new opportunities and new challenges in my career where I can work full-time with this. It's not easy, but I'm still trying. And if you have any more questions, please feel free to ask.